Well, I'm back. It's been a while and a lot has happened since the last episode I recorded that was literally in January. And there's really a lot I could talk about today, but there's something specifically I want to focus on, a lawsuit that no one's really talking about. And that lawsuit involves a lot of defendants, and I want to talk about one defendant in particular today, and that's Shaquille O'Neal. I'm going to dive into the company that's being sued with Shaquille O'Neal and talk a little bit more why celebrities can be found liable just for giving an endorsement. But before we jump into today's episode, make sure you follow this podcast, make sure you like this episode, and if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, disagreements, just put it down in the comment section below. I'll try to get to it. Before we can fully dive into Shaquille O'Neal's connection with this lawsuit, we have to understand the company that's being sued and why they're being sued. That company is called FTX. So what is FTX? It was once a prominent cryptocurrency exchange company that was founded back in 2019. It offered a platform for trading various digital assets, including spot markets, derivatives, and leveraged products. At its peak, FTX was the third largest crypto exchange currency company in the entire world, and it was valued at $32 billion. Needless to say, it was doing extremely well, but not for the reason that you might be expecting. In fact, just a few years after its founding, everyone later learned that the CEO, Sam Bankman-Fried, was heavily involved in fraud and corruption. Now, in November of 2022, a surge of shareholders just sold out of their stock and tried to back away from the company completely as soon as allegations of Sam Bankman-Fried came out of him being involved in this fraud. Only a year later, that same CEO was convicted of fraud and conspiracy. And since 2022, FTX is involved in various lawsuits and has been in the court ever since. And I actually just pulled up a list of everything that they're being sued for, and that's fraudulent misrepresentation, unregistered security, customer fund misuse, and false advertising. As well as they're still in court settling their Chapter 11 bankruptcy and figuring out how they're going to be able to pay off all of the people that they owe money to. Needless to say, FTX is bad news, and it was a bad company from the get-go and seemed like it was corrupt and wrong and fraudulent from the very beginning. So, much to my surprise, a few days ago, I was reading a few articles, and one came about Shaquille O'Neal paying a $1.8 million settlement for this FTX lawsuit. And so I started reading this article, and I was just really confused. I wondered how a celebrity who just endorsed a company could be found liable for misleading shareholders because they were paid to say, this product is great. I didn't think that a company paid a celebrity for their expertise in a specific product, but rather for their face and for their name and for their fame. In fact, FTX was able to get many celebrity endorsements, and many of those celebrities are still involved in this lawsuit. Just to list a few, you have Tom Brady, Steve Curry, Gisele Bündchen, Larry David, Naomi Osaka, David Ortiz, Shohei Ohtani, Kevin O'Leary, and the list goes on. But perhaps the smartest of all of these celebrities that got involved was Shaquille O'Neal, because after years of the lawsuit, he finally got out. But I actually want to specifically talk about how a celebrity endorsement can end up in liability in a lawsuit such as this one with FTX. Because it was my understanding that the company only paid them for their fame and their face just to promote their product and not for their expertise in any particular field. So I did a little research into this, and specifically in Florida, I believe that's where Shaquille O'Neal lives, there are specific laws in place making it that so celebrities can be found liable for this, and it's called the Securities Act of 1933. And just for some context, in Florida they have very particular security laws, and FTX was not registered properly under Florida law and was found liable for a lot of unregistered securities, and so it's been really messy there. And I think because of these unregistered securities, anything under the Security Act can be used as case law or can be used as an argument for these lawsuits that all of these celebrities are involved in. Now, in the Securities Act of 1933, the specific text of the act defines the term security as a note, a stock, treasury stock, security future, security-based swap, bond, debenture, evidence of indebtedness, certificate of interest, or participation in profit sharing. Essentially, what a security means is that it is a part of the company, like a stock or what a shareholder would own. And in Section 12 of the Securities Act is very specific of why someone like a celebrity could be found and tied into a lawsuit. It states specifically in the Act, by offers or sells a security, whether or not exempted by provision of the Section 3, by use of any means or instruments of transportation or communication in interstate commerce, or mails by means of prospects or oral communication, which includes untrue statement of a material fact or omits it to its state material fact necessary in order to make the statements. Essentially, what this is saying, that even if you don't know it's true, or you think it's true, or you're lying, or you think it's not true, you can still be found liable if that statement you made is not true. And you can also be found liable if you lie by omission. So what this means is that any celebrity could be hired, let's say, for the company Clorox, but little do they know that Clorox is putting poison in their wipes. As much as they say, oh, Clorox is safe to use, they can be found liable in misleading shareholders. They can be found liable in any sort of lawsuit of that nature, because it's specifically in the state of Florida, because of this Securities Act. It makes it so that any statements they made with that endorsement can be used against them. There are 3 key takeaways from Shaquille O'Neal's involvement in this lawsuit. And first is his settlement and what he settled, so he didn't have to go to court for. His celebrity influence and what that means with the law, and that he has not admitted to any wrongdoing. Now, as I mentioned earlier, he paid $1.8 million in settlement fees, so he didn't have to go to court anymore. He's involved in this law. He's been involved in this lawsuit since 2022. I imagine after 3 years of the finding process and being involved in litigation and having to be deposed, I think he was done and just wanted to get out of it. And looking at the numbers, he seems like he was paid the very least amount of money for any celebrity endorsement. He was paid $750,000, while someone like Tom Brady reportedly got paid $55 million. So it's clear why he would want to get out, and that he could settle for a smaller price because he wasn't paid as much money and he could just get out of that as quickly as possible. And something else I found really interesting about this lawsuit that I learned was what the law states about celebrity influence. Because courts have recognized that celebrity endorsements have a large impact on whether a customer will buy, sell, or shop with a company. So when a celebrity endorses a financial products, they're expected to do their due diligence to avoid promoting anything fraudulent or risky. And that's specific with financial products like the FTX company, which dealt a lot with cryptocurrency. So all of these celebrities should have done their due diligence, sort of looked into the past, should have seen what kind of man Sam Bankman-Fried was, but I imagine a lot of them were just sniffing for the money, and that's where they went for instead. What's also really interesting about Shaquille O'Neal's involvement is that he has not admitted to any wrongdoing. He did not admit guilt, but rather, I imagine the settlement was more strategic, just to save face and to get out of the lawsuit as quickly as possible. And I imagine just as an endorser, it might be confusing why you're being dragged into bankruptcy and misleading shareholders and fraud charges all the time, even though you were just paid money to say something on a camera, like most actors, most celebrities, or news or sports reporters, just like Shaquille O'Neal is. You're just told to say something on camera and you get paid for it. All in all, this is a story about why not only someone like Shaquille O'Neal should do research into a company, but why all of us should do research into companies, and we should do our due diligence to ensure that we're investing in the right companies and companies that we agree with. Maybe before buying stock into a company or becoming a shareholder, or buying a certain type of cryptocurrency, one could do a little digging on the CEO or the business model of the company, see where it's based, where they're spending their money, how open they are, how much the stock is priced, how much they're paying their celebrities for their endorsements. Because I can imagine that in 3 years, if a cryptocurrency company can be paying Tom Brady $55 million, there has to be something fraudulent going on, but who knows where that money came from. But I know that if we do our due diligence, you can walk away from a situation, whether it ended well or poorly, knowing that we did all the most we can, and maybe we won't have to be involved in lawsuits for over 7 years about some cryptocurrency. Anyways, that's all for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining in. I hope to post another episode soon. I'll see you all next time.